Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. Did I sound weird? I don't know if my mic sounds weird or not. All right, it's your host, Sean. As always, there's always some form of technical difficulty on my end, but we have bellied up to the bar today. And for those of you who didn't realize it, because I didn't realize it till I was paying attention here the other day, on the 14th, we hit our 5-year anniversary of podcasting, and the last episode was number 290. So we've done a fair amount of shows on a but to kick it off as our 291st episode, we should have someone from our 50th state here, because that makes perfect sense. That if I did the math and worked it around and added in like the polygamy, I don't even know how to say it, whatever that theorem is, all these different things, it would all make sense. But then this person would probably want to fight with me, because they're going to teach us how we can turn conflicts into conversations. So joining us at like 2:00 in the afternoon or something like that, it's like she just had breakfast or something along those lines. It's Miss, and I'm going to butcher her name because I just realized it. I forgot it that quick. It's Miss Lena Morgan.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so glad that I can celebrate this amazing milestone with you all the way from Alaska.
You know, that 5 year. You know what's interesting now that I just thought about this? Oh, wow, that's wild. So 5 years on the 14th, and my first guest ever now used to live in Arizona. She now lives in Alaska.
It's full circle. I'm so glad we can have this moment.
It is, and it is a moment, and we're going to call it a moment. Completely in that way. So as always, folks, we're going to be talking about turning conflicts into conversations. How do we work with other people in a more positive way, and how to make that conversation where normally you think to yourself, well, I'm never talking to this person again. I could care less about them. How do I turn that into a much more positive conversation, a much more, reasonable conversation with them? So for those of you that are going to be joining us live, make sure you're giving this a like, share, follow, all those kind of things. That reminds me to tell everyone to share this post. See, I always forget all these things. This is why I do all this stuff, because I forgot to tell people to share all these things. And me and Facebook have been fighting. I'm not a fan of Facebook no more. It won't let me do things. So I haven't even poured my first drink yet. I did it. So make sure you're giving everything a like, share, follow. As always, folks, the big board over my shoulders for Sticker and a Cause. If you have something you believe in, something you're supporting, something you think is important for others to know about, make sure you give us a like, share, follow. You can reach us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, all these different locations. As you can see, the 8-year-old trying to sneak his face in on today's episode. For those of you who are watching live, this is his move. He wants to get on Dad's show and wave at every. All right, go away, son.
No.
Isn't your mother calling you? Oh, Lena, do you have any children?
I do.
Would you
I
like
have an 11 and a 14-year-old.
You want an 8-year-old? Like, I'll ship him to Alaska tomorrow.
We're out of that phase. I'm good.
So all these things being said, but make sure you're reaching out to us. If you've got something you believe in, something you're supporting, we can go ahead and put that sticker right up so everybody else can know all about what you got happening there. Also, folks, as a reminder, we got to talk about our sponsors, and that's Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Hudson and Cooksaki, and Schoharie, New York, North America's largest custom window treatment company. They got locations in all 50 states, even Alaska, all 50 states, to include even Canada, the 51st state. Hint, hint, wink, wink. That's funny. It always makes me laugh. All these different things. So make sure you're reaching out to your local Budget Blinds. And if you're in the capital region of New York and you want to reach out to somebody, you reach out to Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Hudson, and Cooksaki. This month, they're doing 20% off all window treatments. And adding to that little factor there is if you get a motorized shade, they'll take another 5% off. And if you tell them you're there to belly up to the bar, they're going to give you another 5% off of that. So you can get up to 30% off your window treatments just for listening to the Above the Bar podcast. How about that, folks? So make sure you're reaching out to them. Budget Blinds, East Greenbush, Hudson, Cooksaki, and Schoharie. All right, Miss Lena, it's all done. All the house cleaning is over. And let me make sure I got all my notes correct. Let me get my notes up here. So you've got, let's see. So you created fight language. What is let's talk about your background that brings us, let's start there. Like, what background brings you to be able to like even consider like, hey, because one of the best things I loved when I was reading into your stuff was like being able to fight makes for better relationships. Like, I've got to understand this. So what's your background that gets you to these places?
So I started my path to conflict resolution the way everybody does, which is as a midwife for a really long time.
Well, that makes sense.
Obviously. And when you take a big step back, it actually makes a lot of sense, right? Because I'm hanging out with people in one of the most stressful experiences of their lives. I need everybody communicating well with each other and with me, and I need to be able to communicate exceptionally well with them as we're in this really high pressure, high stakes situation. And I need everybody to have a good experience in this. So for over 13 years, I was a midwife. I owned 3 birth centers. We had this huge practice in Alaska, which means that I also had a huge staff that I was dealing with and this enormous client load. And how can we make sure that people have these really beautiful, meaningful connections that they want to have when they're welcoming their child into the world? Well, communication's huge in that, right? And after, burnout, PTSD, it's a really difficult job. I did it for a long time, on call 24/7. I was like, all right, I'm done with this. What is it that I can do that's going to give me that same sense of like, this is meaningful. I'm adding something good to the world. What I spend my time on feels worthy. And helping people fight better was like this perfect, segue into a new phase of life, because I realized so much of what I'd been doing was figuring out the fight languages in each birth room to help change that conversation for whatever this mom needed. So when I sat down, wrote it out, and was like, okay, the love languages are cool, but I think there's actually something called the fight languages, and it's way more effective at having people feel understood, therefore loved and seen and respected. And I put a video out on social media and it went viral, and I was like, okay, yeah, no, this is what I thought, is that people, this resonates. We want more tools and skills when it comes to conflict.
So I got to roll this back for a second though. So
yeah,
it makes sense that communication being a very integral part, super important in midwifing. But I guess I got to start here in case one of the Mongos of my life, which is most men, don't know what a midwife is. A midwife is
someone that walks with families through pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum. Same, OBGYN, we are not surgeons. We are healthy, low risk, normal birth that happens. I practiced out of the hospital, so I owned birth centers where you could come give birth, or I went to people's homes.
Okay. So where in that, and listen, that makes listen, between my wife and I, we have 8 children. I understand completely what you're saying. Like we've heard, I've listened to my daughters go, I'm going to be very natural with this. This is going to be great. And then like when it hit that point of this is bullshit. And then they're like, give me the drugs. And the doctor's like, too late. You missed that window. Sure. So like, I can understand where that communication and all these things, but what was it in that world that you realized, like, I understand what you're saying, like, hey, communication, but was there a particular thing that kind of set it off where you were like, yeah, I need to learn how to like, not just communicate with mom, but how do I shut down the mother-in-law who's being a real pain in the ass? Like, how did you, like, did you have a background that like developed it, or you just became a verbal ninja through training?
Yeah, trial and error.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you think about it, I'm seeing these people on a regular basis, and it's often the whole family. Mom and dad are there, maybe siblings are there, and everybody's going through this kind of big transition in life. And so a lot of that underlying stuff that was a small problem before is becoming a much bigger problem now. And if you have this kind of safe, neutral third party, stuff's going to start getting hashed out. And so it was, like these prenatal visits are becoming more like, therapy sessions. And I was not in a space, I'm an empathetic listener, but I really had to up my skill set to be able to hang out with people in that space and say, all right, let's talk about what's really going on here, though, or let's hear what someone's saying behind the really terrible way that they're saying it. And then, yeah, when we get to the birth itself, now hopefully the groundwork that we've laid communication wise means that that mom's able to, not have to advocate for herself in that space. We've already got clear communication. I know how to communicate with her in a way that's going to really resonate. And I know what she needs. So I can be that block with the mother-in-law saying, no, she wants me to be in there. I'm sure of it. Well, okay, let's talk.
Because as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I've definitely heard enough of those stories about the mother-in-law who's like, they only allowed two, and my son's in there, and he needs me. Like, listen, folks, they've paid me a lot of money to be in that room. Trust me, I'm going in that room. Like, see, that's where that would be me. Like, I'm gonna be like, listen, they paid me a lot of money to be in there. Unless you're reimbursing them for what I'm going in that room. Like, was that the level that you had to be at for most
So,
part?
ours was a little different than the hospital setting, right? Because the birth center, it's essentially like one of our birth centers was a renovated barn, and one of them was this sweet cottage. And, so it was a different setting of who was even going to be at the birth center to begin with. It's not like an all hands on deck. It's an exclusive party invite to get to come, in the first place.
Okay.
So we certainly had people that would show up when they couldn't get a hold of, the son, and, oh, they must be at the birth center, and have them walk in. And we were usually catching them pretty early and saying, oh, this is, unless you're in labor or your partner's in labor, you didn't get an invite.
No buenos for you.
Yeah. And,
No.
there's no room. Look, this
So
is what we're working with.
so now you kind of mentioned you reached that burnout point running. You said 13 different centers.
No, just three.
Oh, three
Three
centers.
different birth centers. Yeah,
I thought
totally.
you said
Cool.
13.
Thank goodness.
I mean,
No.
even three though. I mean, three different
Mhm,
centers handling that situation, births every day.
mhm,
Regular whatever the regulatory side to that is. Also dealing
mhm,
with all those things. I'm going to kind of tap into the small business world for you for a second.
mhm.
Where was it that when you realized in that world? Because I have a friend who she may even pop up here, who was kind of in a similar situation. She was running a very large uh, dog daycare kennel facility, and kind
Sure.
of was the same way. Like, I'm tapping out. I'm done. What was it for you that when you really realized like this has got to stop?
And, the unfortunate thing in the path I chose was that I didn't listen to the whispers or the yells. I waited until it was that internal screaming of like,
Mhm.
I can't do this anymore. And if I were to go back and do it again, it would definitely be like, you know what you know. And then you talk yourself out of it based on what everybody around you needs from you as a small business owner. There's 1,000 needs. And if you have employees, my gosh, they're all depending on you as well. So we talk ourselves out for a way longer extent of time than is ever healthy or really necessary, because when we get to the end and we step away, we realize, oh, everyone could survive without us. Like, I felt like I was irreplaceable. I wasn't. There's a lovely birth center with a lovely group still rolling on. So unfortunately for me, yeah, the burnout and the PTSD, because remember, I was not only a practicing midwife, I owned the birth centers. So you're right. It's the day to day, the clinic, the births. You're on call. We don't really have a cap on how long we're going to be there. So I think like 72 hours was the longest I had been at a birth. So you might go, you don't know when you're coming back. You've got
Wow.
young kids. You've got a partner that's like, what are we doing here? What's going on? Um, so yeah, I started having panic attacks when someone would call in the middle of the night. And that was when I was like, wow, you are wildly unsafe to go attend someone as a medical professional now. It's time to step away and set this down.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah,
So
it
so
sucked.
so how long from that to realizing that you had developed this skill for creating the fight language that you
Mhm.
felt like, hey, I could help somebody out? How long was that gap?
That was probably that was probably a year from I need to close the birth center, I need to set this down, I need to step away, while still like I need to figure out what I'm doing with my life. I had this really meaningful, I loved being a midwife. If I didn't have the PTSD and burnout, I would still be a midwife. I loved that role and being a part of families in that way. So it was a lot of, that kind of soul searching of, can I do this in a different capacity? Can I do it if I'm working for somebody else? Can I do it if I take a break? And it was just like, no, I cannot do that anymore. I can't be tired. I can't be on call. Those are still really uncomfortable for me. So then it was like, all right, well, what am I going to do? And it seemed like, all right, going online and having these conversations that felt really profound when I was talking to clients about them was a space. And then I didn't know if it was going to be pregnancy and birth related. And that was even like, man, I think I'm ready to stretch out of this a little bit and do something that works for
Just get
everybody.
completely away from
Mhm.
that world in general.
Yeah.
So how do you start, like I get it, the verbal ninja side to it when you're dealing with conflict
Mhm.
resolution on a regular basis. And I think what most people would be like, well, this is conflict resolution. Kind of. I think,
Right.
I mean, it's not,
Uh-huh.
but when did you understand that you had, well, let me ask this, I think this is absolutely fascinating. So when did you realize that there was, like, people have love languages? When did you realize there was a fight language? Like, did you read something? Like, what did you realize? Like, no, 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 we fight in a certain way, and there's a good way and a
Yeah.
bad way.
Yeah, the partner I had at the time, we had a discussion about it. And it was literally like sitting in the parking lot getting ready to go to the gym. And it was like, fight languages are cool or love languages are cool and we understand this about each other. But I gotta say, it's really not hitting the nail on the head for me. I wanted to be understood in my experience, and the love languages were not doing that. And I literally see, if there's love languages, there have to be fight languages. And that just made so much more sense to me. So I went online. I was like, oh, this is obviously a thing that exists. Like, let's look at the framework. Let's figure this out. And when I looked at it, it was like a couple people had maybe taken an attempt, but it was really convoluted. I couldn't understand, I couldn't see myself in that. So there was nothing online that was real or functional. So I was like, no, all right, let me take a stab at this. I mean, it's a little ego based, but like, I
Hey,
think I can
listen,
figure this out, you
I don't
know?
think it's that much ego based. I mean, if you can come up with it and develop an idea that, like, there's a real thing called fight language, I think that makes perfect sense in my mind. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. And
I love
I mean,
that.
I was shocked that it didn't exist, honestly, that somebody hadn't like figured out how to communicate this in a way that was going to be productive and people would be able to resonate with. And it took a little refinement,
Right.
as I was like figuring out, okay, how many are there? And I started with 6 and realized, no, this is just another flavor of this one, and ended up at the 5 and did a lot of beta testing on like, okay, take this quiz, tell me if this resonates for you. What have I gotten right? What have I gotten wrong?
So what are some of the things then? And again, folks, if you're interested, what Lena's got going on, you can go to fightlanguages with an S at the end of it.com. For those of you that are watching us live right now, if you've got questions about maybe you're trying to figure out how to properly fight with somebody and what type of words, but what are some of the things that you started to develop and started to realize, like, hey, this is, like, when I think of the fight language, I'm like, you boop, 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 and there's a lot of beeps after most.
Yeah.
Like what kind of things did you start to develop and understand as, and again, positive fight language?
Yep, totally. One of the biggest, I think, like aha moments for me was with two of the five fight languages, our igniters, which is the anger response. And the aha came with like, oh my gosh, these people have a superpower. They're really comfortable with anger and they're not afraid to access it or use it, right? Poor them are out here in the world where everyone else says, no, anger makes me really uncomfortable and I really hate it and I wish you wouldn't do that, right? When actually igniters have this incredible skill. They're very protective. They want to make sure that, you know, them and theirs are protected under their anger. And there's a lot of really useful information for them. Whenever I'm working with an igniter one on one, it's like, cool, let's talk about the scale of your anger because you stay in the fight until it gets to rage, right? Until you're exploding and pulling the pin out of the grenade. But if you actually backed up way over here at frustration, that's when your argument would still be productive over there. And if we're moving past it, cool, hit pause. No problem.
So
Hit
we'll,
pause.
we'll go back to the type of people, because like you've
Mhm.
used that term igniter a couple of times, which also sounds like instigator to me. But like
Uh, different, but I can see, yeah. So we've got the five different types. Igniter, anger-based response. Their core need is to feel protected, and they are very good at protecting themselves, right? They'll pull the
okay,
pin out of the grenade. They will shut the fight down. They will choose to be the bad guy in it, right? If it feels like, nope, this isn't going to go anywhere, people are getting hurt, they'll be the bad guy just to end it. Next, we have the amplifier. So this is our emotion-based response, and their core need is to feel understood in their emotions and their feelings. So
okay,
these are the people that are like, you know, you're just not listening to me, and they keep escalating until they feel hurt. They might end up in tears. They might end up, you know, like screaming and yelling about something because they need to know that you understand how they feel. Then we have the negotiators. Negotiators is the connection-based response, and they have a core need to reassure that connection with someone else. So these are the people, like this was another aha moment for me because it seemed like, okay, well, negotiators are like maybe doing a good job. Yeah, they seem like a parent or a teacher, but they are going to suppress everybody else's reactions to try and make things just be okay. They want to fix it, right? They just don't want people to be tense or angry. So really this was problematic because the negotiators were stopping the fight from ever going to have a
and
conclusion or
progressive.
being resolved. Right. Yeah.
I mean, and
So
and that's what a lot of this sounds like. I want to pause you for a second, because that's what a
yeah.
lot of this sounds like is, and I think some people may hear it and be like, oh, that's not, people fighting, they're not communicating, they're this, they're that. But really that's what it's about, is getting the emotions out, getting it in front of you, getting it to where you can access your feelings. Am I understanding that
Yes.
right?
Yeah, totally. Well, and you know, the way I phrase it is like we want to make this productive rather than protective. And that protective information is all about your initial reaction. That knee jerk reaction that you have, that's usually where we're fighting from, right?
Mm,
We have that knee jerk reaction and we stay in it rather than realizing, oh, that's just my protective response coming up. I can see that. I can acknowledge it. That other person can even acknowledge it. And then we can get to what's really going on behind there. Why do I feel protective right now? Why am I feeling reactive about this? And then there's, you know, in my book, I'm like bullet point lists of here's what you can do about it. I want to make this easy.
See, I like all those kind of things. So going to your partner here for a minute, because you've got a lot of names for these things. Like, did your
Mhm.
partner help you develop these names? And no, so this was all on
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious, because you
Yeah.
said
Yeah.
your partner at the time. So that's
Mhm.
always curious to me. And then the other thing is, when you finally said to, I don't know if that person was still with you when you developed all this, or who you're with now, but when you started presenting it to people and saying, because this is always interesting to me, like those of us that have a creative side, like me starting this and other things,
Yeah.
when you said to them, like, hey, I've created this language to help people fight in a productive way, turning conflicts into conversations. Again, folks, check fightlanguages.com out. And I've created this. What were some of the reactions that you got from people?
So, I mean, in my own personal relationships, it was humbling, right? Because I had to own my own fight language. I had to, like, it wasn't going to work to just be like, okay, here's what I see you doing. You're doing this and you need to do it differently. Like, no one in the world is going to be able to not get defensive at that. So, I really was about, like, this was my own discovery of my own fight language. Because I often say, listen, we've got two people in a relationship. One person changes, the whole relationship changes. 50% of that is totally different. We have a different situation now. And so figuring out my own fight language, what I needed in relationships, how I needed to communicate with someone, how I needed to be able to show up did bring on the end of that relationship. It just didn't work out the way we had hoped. And, okay, thanks. Thank you for that.
So are you
Yeah.
an igniter? I feel like you're
No, I'm an amplifier. I'm an amplifier. So I come from that emotion, and he was an analyzer. So there's two more we didn't get to there. The analyzer, logic-based response, and they have a core need to have their logic feel understood. So
okay.
here we had an amplifier, me, who was like, I need my emotions to be validated. If I can't do it, I need you to do it. And someone that I was fighting against that said, emotions don't matter, facts over feelings. What are you talking about? Like, look at the black and white. This is very, you know, and I often find analyzers and amplifiers in relationships together, and they're both just banging their heads on the wall to try and get the other person to understand them, you know?
You know what? That
And
makes
then the
uh,
fifth one there is the extinguisher. Mhm.
what's an extinguisher? Like they're just always trying to end the argument. Like I'm done. I'm going to walk away, kind of person.
Yeah, yeah,
Like they.
exactly. Yep. So they have a core need to feel safe. So, different from the igniter that needs to feel protected, the extinguisher needs to feel safe. And if things don't feel safe, they're like up walking around, they can't make eye contact with you, they're shut down, they might, retreat in their head, or they're literally leaving out the door. They're like, you know what, I can't do this. I got to go to work. Like, I'm going to go to the gym now. And then they're gone, you know.
So how if somebody wanted to figure out where they fit in these categories, how would they go about that?
So I've got a free quiz, fightlanguages.com. 10 questions. It is quick and easy, and you will get your top 3 fight languages.
How long does it
Because
take?
remember,
How long does it
what's
take?
that?
How long does the quiz take?
Oh, 3 minutes. I mean, it's quick and easy. And I want you to just, the analyzers come in and they overthink the whole thing and they want to argue with the quiz. No, just go with your gut, answer, the questions as they come. And you're not going to have just one fight language, right? You're going to have a fight language when you're talking with your partner. You're going to have a different one when you're at work talking with clients or your boss. You're going to have a fight language you use more with your kids. So when you take the quiz, I say on the website, like, have a specific person in mind, because that's really going to inform what fight language you're speaking with them. Give you so much more information about it.
So now when you as you've developed this and you've put it out there and everything, have you seen anyone kind of take your initial research and try to run with it as their own or anything like that?
No,
Okay.
no. I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm just sitting here in my own weird bubble of, like, just wanting to talk about how people fight all the time. No, I mean, I've really enjoyed the, like,
Hmm.
places and spaces I've gotten to have these conversations in or talk about the book on. But no, I haven't seen anyone else really run with it. There's been people who have been really interested in, like, becoming a trainer or taking it further. It's just, I haven't had time.
I mean, I'm looking at some of the questions here, and I really find this interesting. Like, how do you usually prepare after a fight? Quick apologies, or we are done here and move on. Emotional
Mhm.
debrief, peace offering, or checking in with others, clarifying your point, or trying to agree with logic, waiting it out, hoping it fades on its own. I've known plenty of people like that.
Right.
Like I feel like that's like 80% of the world's default is like, if I just stay away long enough, it's it's there. So what do you
Right.
do? Like so you find out that this person is, you know, uh an extinguisher or igniter or something like that, what do they do
Mhm.
with this information? And now that I got it, like, great. Now I already knew how I like to fight with people. Like, I will tell
Right.
you, like, I didn't see this question yet. I am to the jugular. I'm going to win.
Mhm.
there is no backing down. Like,
Yeah, that's
I'm
an
that guy.
igniter.
Oh, is it?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep, totally. I used to have one on a question because I've, redone the quiz many times, but
Okay.
one of the early questions was, I bring a gun to a knife fight, and that was for the igniter of like, I will end this. It doesn't matter. Like, I will say the meanest shit I can think of just to end the conversation. And the bummer thing for our igniters then is they often feel really guilty about it afterward once they're not seeing red anymore and they kind of come back into their bodies.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a
That's a great
bummer.
it's an out of body experience. Like,
Yes,
it
yes,
is.
totally. No, and again, it's that reaction. So, a lot of people, igniters, for example, are waiting until they have that reaction and now they're in a fight. And what they don't realize is they were in a conflict a long time before that. And they were probably telling the other person, listen, I don't want to do this with you. Don't push me. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I want to set it down. I'm not in a good space. Igniters generally give really good, like waving a red flag saying, no, I don't want to, like, this isn't going to go well. We've done
Yeah.
this 100 times before. And they keep getting pushed until they explode. And so if you knew, like, if I was your partner, okay, cool. Even if I worked with you and I knew, okay, you're an igniter, then I'm going to know when you start to get frustrated, I need to speak that igniter language that says, yeah, it's getting a little tense. Why don't we take a break?
Okay.
Let's take 5 minutes to cool off. I want to finish this conversation with you. Like, I want to have this, but let's just take 5 minutes. Let's take a break. Because what I found for most igniters and extinguishers is when I ask them, like, okay, how long do you need to kind of cool off, come back to the conversation, like we can pick it up again? It's literally like 5 to 10 minutes. Like, you just have to go and let your heart rate come down a little bit.
You know what's interesting about that? I don't think any man having a conversation with a woman that's an igniter going, so I think we need to just calm down for a minute and relax. And then,
Oh, see, that
oh,
is not what I'm saying. Nope.
like that just sounds like
Yeah,
game on. Like, what did you say to me? Like, no,
totally.
we need 5 minutes. We're gonna calm down. We're gonna relax. Fuck you and relax. Like, oh shit. Like, I
So
gotta
you'll
go.
notice what I did not say is you need to calm down because those are fighting words. Like, come
Yeah.
on. Yeah, that's gonna, but no, like, hey, I'm starting to feel tense. I just want to take 5 minutes. Can we hit pause? Let's hit play again in a minute. I do want to finish this conversation with you. Like, I want to come back to it. Because a lot of times, like, if you're in a discussion with an amplifier, they need to have their feelings
Oh,
understood. They need it to continue, right? So if you're saying, like, I'm frustrated, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm walking away, then that person's gonna, that anxious attachment style, like, keep pulling and pushing for the resolution. So if you let them know, no, I want to resolve, I want to have this conversation, I just need 5 minutes.
I'm an igniter. I'm an
Mhm.
igniter. It's like,
Yeah, I know.
I had to I had to go through it because I was like, as I'm reading the question, because I was curious of all the different questions. It says, first, I'm an igniter. Second, I'm an amplifier. Third, I'm a negotiator.
Oh, interesting. I
And
like it. Okay.
why
Okay,
is that?
cool.
So tell me why that's interesting.
So that says to me that when you're in a fight, like, you're pulling the pin out of the grenade, you are, leveling the field. But what is important behind that is you want someone to understand why, like, why you feel like this, why this is important to you. And so that amplifier is going to come through and say, like, if, like, it would probably be really just fuel to the fire for someone to say, like, your feelings don't matter on this. Like, I don't care that you feel that way, or, it doesn't make sense that you feel that way. Why are you doing that? And then the negotiator last, if that could have just been a question in there that you were like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. But we all tend to have that final ripcord that we'll pull when we're like, this is not going well. Oh my God. And for a lot of people, it'll be an extinguisher. You just shut down, you walk away. if it was the negotiator, then that would mean that you'd be like, listen, you know what? Okay, this is on me. I'm sorry. Fine. I'm sorry. Let's just move on. Okay. Yep, nope. I'm the asshole here. We're good. Okay, we can move on now.
See, as you're saying it, the igniter in me is going, look, we're done. I'm the asshole. We're moving the hell on. I'm done with this bullshit. I'm done.
Yep. Totally.
Because as an
Totally.
igniter, as I'm trying to shut it down, I just like, nah, we need to go ahead and wipe the field clean. Go ahead and turn everything to
Right.
glass.
So you've probably done that enough and seen like, okay, this destroys relationships sometimes when I do this. So you have that negotiator step in to be like, you know what? Just swallow it. Just take it
Be
on the
done.
chin. Okay, fine. I'm going to move on now. Whatever. Yeah. Because the igniter doesn't do that in a fight. The igniter, you know, is saying the most horrible stuff that everyone's in tears around them. And like, you know, yeah, it's the worst. That's how an igniter ends a fight.
100% salt the
Mm-hmm.
field. Everything
Yeah.
must go. I
Yep.
understand it completely. So
Mm-hmm.
now, have you worked with any because as I'm hearing this, one of the big things that comes to mind to me, and I know you mentioned PTSD and all that, is this really would be something for service members to
Mm-hmm.
understand. Like, have you had a chance to work up there in Alaska with any the units that are up there or family services to be like, hey, I can provide this to you?
Right. I haven't, no, I'm in school full time as well now to be a nurse. So my time has been more limited, but we do actually have an enormous veteran population up here and really incredible programs. So I was in touch with one of them a year or two ago, and the timing just didn't work out. But I mean, if nothing else, I feel like a lot of a lot of men are igniters,
Oh yeah.
period, or they're analyzers, and they're saying, make it make sense. And until you do, it doesn't matter. So just to give them the tools to know what's happening, why it's happening, and what they can do differently is huge. Because otherwise, we're going to go with the tried and true. Here's what I've always done before. I'm not consciously doing this. This is all just a reaction.
Just trucking right along. It's just is who I am. This is what I do.
Hmm.
This is how I
Right.
deal with situations. No, listen,
Yep.
that makes perfect sense to me because I could see that conversation when somebody's like, "Hey, man, you always want to fight." Listen, man, that's just who I am. That's how I deal with
Exactly.
situations.
Exactly.
Oh, I could
You know,
ab-
people push me, I'm gonna push back. Mhm.
mm, mm, mm.
Yeah.
that that's interesting because I definitely could see that. So, uh, with this, and again, folks, if you're looking to find out what Lena's got going on, it's fight languages with an S. I keep saying this, fight languages with an S.com. You can see what she's got going on, what she has happening. If you're out there right now, those of you that are watching, make sure you give this a like, share, a follow, and ask some questions. Maybe you want to know what your fight language is. You can take the quiz. I mean, literally, folks, I took it while we were sitting here having this conversation because I wanted to read the questions and then got laughed at by Lena because she's like, ooh, you're a hot mess. She's already figured out that I'm a hot mess with fighting. I'm not good with it. I'm so not good with it. But you also have some other things on your website that I find interesting, like what's a wolf mother?
Yeah, so, birth, I love birth still, and after enough time, I worked with a local doula that I was friends with, and we made a childbirth education class.
What's a birth?
So
What's a
a
ab
doula is a birth support person. So they're not someone that holds a medical role like a midwife does. They are
Okay.
literally just there to support you. So whether your partner's there or isn't able to be there, you know, it's a person that's like, listen, I'm super familiar with birth. I have a ton of great ideas to help you in this. And there's amazing statistics that show that having a doula at your birth will lower your induction rate, your C-section rate. I mean, it improves outcomes significantly. So doulas are amazing. So she and I made a childbirth education course that was like the course that we would have wanted to take in, you know, years ago. Of let's be real about this though. Let's talk about what birth really is.
So so I was thinking like when I was reading it, it was like more like helicopter mom and all these other things, not like interesting. So I got to tell you, Alaska's got a solid tattoo game. I'm looking at your pictures here. Yeah, like, you guys got a solid tattoo game up there, and I feel like anyone who's up there, like, you have to have, like, your tattoo alt lifestyle game is strong in Canada or up in Alaska.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
looking here, like, very New York City-esque on all this. So you got that, so people can figure out that. What other things are you working on? I mean, because I'm just looking through your website, and whoever designed your
Mhm.
website, whoever put it together, beautiful website, like the
Thank
colors.
you. Thanks very much.
It's done very well, and I don't say that often because I get people in here and they're like, "So
That's
check out my
awesome.
website," and I'm like, "Oh, did you build this on Firefly back in, like, 1999?"
Dreamweaver?
Yeah,
Yeah, totally.
"Oh, this is
Yeah.
great. This is
Oh,
nice."
thanks. Graphic design and web design are hobbies that I just use for my own stuff. So thank
Alright,
you very much. That's great.
and then you have
Um,
Healer. What my chair is falling, so I have to fix it.
Healer. Yeah. So Healer is this is launching, we think September, and this is huge. I'm super excited about Healer. So this is a women's health education platform that myself and a naturopath physician put together, and it literally goes through not only all of a woman's hormones, but all of the cycles of her life and all of the signals that her body gives her to say, something's up, this isn't okay. When we look at the statistics for women's healthcare, it's abysmal. It takes women years longer to get diagnosed with something than it does for a man. And it was only in 1993 that women even were required to be included in medical studies. Before 1993,
Really?
so many, yeah, no, it's like jarring. So before that, it was optional to include women or not, and they often chose not to because women were considered too difficult because we're cyclical and our bodies are not the same every day. So, yeah, we just don't have the science that we should about these kind of things.
That's interesting. So I never knew that, and then I've learned more and more about how minority women deal with medical issues in
Mhm.
even a worse level
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
of just systematic. I don't even want to call it racism, but systematic. What would be the right term? Stereotypes,
Just
systematic
yeah, just
stereotypes about
mhm.
different cultures, and especially by and a lot of people just wanna be like, "It's all the white doctors." No, because most of 'em I don't couldn't tell you
Yeah.
the last time I had a white doctor, but, they just have a systematic belief of how people that's so interesting. I did not know that
Mhm.
this was a thing that women weren't included in this. See, listen to
Yeah.
me, Lena, you're educating me a lot here. So,
Fantastic, I love that.
you're making you re I'm a hot-headed when I fight, and
Uh-huh.
we're going to the end, and I didn't know this about women's health whatsoever. So what the hell did they do before 1993 for women's health?
So this is what is so
Like, I'm so
gross
confused.
about it, is because then women would get prescribed these medications, but they had never actually been tested on women, so they did not know how women were going to respond to it. So women's reactions to medications were all considered abnormal. They were all just like, "Well, we don't know what to tell you. Looks like you're having an adverse reaction.
So the
That's a
women were
bummer."
at the bottom of the women were the reason for all the stuff at the bottom of my TV.
Yes. Yeah,
They
exactly.
they caused this, and this. Damn women.
Mhm.
Caused
Yeah.
all the side effects.
Right. So Healer is a program to come in, an education program to come in and say, listen, we don't know the physician you're going to have. We don't know the provider we're going to have. But if we can educate you and how your body works, if we can go through, here's your thyroid system, here's how it works, here's labs you can have done, here's how to interpret the labs you have drawn. Because I'm sure you've had labs drawn, you get a call from your
Yeah.
provider and they're like, yeah, everything looks good. And you're like, okay, what does
Okay.
that mean? And so women are here still symptomatic, still feeling everything, being told that by their providers, you're within the range of normal that I have on this lab sheet. So to be able to empower women to be like, let me look at it. Let me take a look at this and see compared to here's optimal for women in my age, in my, symptomatically what I have going on here, that to go and change the whole medical system, that's daunting, right? I don't have
Right.
the time for that. But to provide the information so women can go in and be an advocate, and then the fight languages come in. How do you go have conversations with a provider where you need to advocate for yourself and have them be productive, not combative? Okay, cool. Let me map out a script for you a lot of scripts on here's how you can have these conversations so you walk away feeling like I was heard, I was understood, and the care that I need, I'm advocating for that and I'm going to get it.
That's amazing. Like that, I mean, you got a lot going on here, off of this fightlanguages.com. Like, wow. Look, folks, it is last call, and as we all know, that's the New Scotland Spirits last call. Discover the spirit of the Highlands right here in New York at New Scotland Spirits, where more than just whiskey makers, we're storytellers, distillers of heritage, and champions of locally grown grain. Every bottle is handcrafted, bold, and unapologetically New York. Whether you're sipping, gifting, or stocking your bar, make it something memorable. Choose New Scotland Spirits. Visit newscotlandspirits.com and taste the tradition. New Scotland Spirits, distilled with pride, enjoyed with purpose. All right. Got that. You ready for a drink now, aren't you? It sounded really good the way it sounded. So
You really sold it.
I'm trying at all times. I'm always trying to sell on
Mhm.
this one. So what are some of the things that you have that people do with you once you've kind of like, hey, now you have your fight language, you
Mhm.
know how your metro pause is working, and now you have Abdul. Listen, when you said doula, all I could think of was the pro wrestler Abdullah. Like so when you said doula, I was thinking like the pro wrestler. I was like, oh, she's into pro wrestling, but
That'd be amazing.
you know, but once you've got all this information and somebody knows their fight language, great. Now what do I do with it?
Yep, absolutely. So the whole goal is to start translating conflict, right? Because you and this other person that you're having this conflict, why you came to me in the first place to try and figure it out, you are having conversations that are missing each other by a mile. You are both literally saying different things than the other person's hearing. So you've got a few options here. You can grab the book, it's available on my website on Amazon. You can download the PDF of it. There's the audiobook on Audible. You can work with me one on one. So I work with individuals, couples, parents and kids, friends and family, whoever it is. If you just want to take responsibility for your part, come work with me one on one. We'll figure it out. It will absolutely change the conversation, and you'll be able to make this relationship feel productive and connected again. If you guys are having a hard time working something out on your own, you come work with me, you know, together, and we figure out how to have these conversations so they're not so emotionally charged and everyone's reactive. I work with businesses a lot to go in. If you have a customer service department, like you want the fight languages, because every time your customer service is talking to someone on the phone, that's an opportunity for that person to walk away feeling heard, understood, validated, valued. And that's the kind of brand loyalty that everyone's trying to figure out. Yeah, and then, working with HR departments where like, okay, we have this team and they need to work together cohesively and they are not, because we have these people that are missing each other by a mile, and so now our productivity's down, and now our overall morale is down, and now, we're missing deadlines and whatever it is. So I'm able to come in, whether it's a team building exercise, a workshop, or working directly with the people with the conflict. It's amazing. And then I, also do like retreats or workshops, women's groups, all kinds of stuff like that.
And it's interesting when you mention the workplace stuff, because I guess initially what I was thinking of was more him and her and him,
Sure.
her, him, her, him. I don't know. There's too many of them out there anymore. I get very confused.
All of them.
All of the above, alphabet soup. Um,
Mhm.
and that's initially what I was thinking of is those type of relationships that you were trying to kind of say, hey, that's what this is. But I guess I never thought about, from a working environment. How's been that reaction? Like going into workplaces and sitting people down and going through the 10 questions and kind of pointing to somebody like, hey, you do realize you have 5 igniters on your call center that
Right.
all work the exact same shift, that all sit next to each other. Oh, and by the way, igniters sound like alpha personalities to me also.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like,
This is what I love the most, because each of the fight languages, if we can, figure out who you have on your team, then we can sit down and figure out what are the roles where those people would be most effective. Our igniters should be in charge. Honestly, they should be the ones holding that big picture, making sure we all get there to the end. They're going to bring everyone in because they have that protective. They don't want anyone to fall behind. They shouldn't be sitting in the call center answering the phones. That's where we put our negotiators. They have an incredible ability to make people feel heard, understood, and problem solve so fast. They're really good at it. Our analyzers should be in logistics. They should be in accounting. They should be in the spaces where it's like black and white. Yeah, you get to live in your black and white world, and it's awesome. And then, our extinguishers are in the office by themselves and nobody bothers them. And they are so happy, and everyone else is so happy. And then put our amplifiers over on your marketing. They're your hype people. They're the ones that are going to be so good at selling your product because they hit the emotion with it.
That's genius. Like my wife works with a call center. Like, this would be amazing. Trust me, when she's watching. So I'm gonna be like, look.
Yeah.
Like, I almost feel like after you hire somebody, like, this would be a great tool. Like, right after you hire them, just to like, hey, we hired you for the call center or whatever job. Hey, we'd like you to take this, and just that way, But I guess that's the other side to it. How do you explain to somebody when, if it was like a new hire and you're like, hey, we'd like you to take this fight language 10-question quiz. Like, I think if I walked into a place and they were like, we'd like you to take this fight language 10-question quiz, I'd be like, what the fuck you want me to do that? Oh, you're an igniter. Like, we don't even need you to take it.
Totally. All the igniters thought that.
Every igniter that's watching this is like, do that dumb shit.
Yeah. What? And I hear from places all the time that's like, maybe they did the Myers-Briggs personality one, or there's a lot of different personality tests. And we could totally say that this is, in that same wheelhouse. But really, the way that I phrase it is, I want to know how to communicate with you best. This is about understanding how I can be showing up better for you. Because if I understand your fight language, then I know better how to communicate with you and how to make this effective. Like, I want this workplace to feel awesome for you. If I know your fight language, I'm better able to do that.
I definitely can see that from a leadership standpoint. If I know who my negotiators are and who my, what was the other one that had me? It began with an A. I don't remember what it was. Agitator.
The analyzers or the amplifiers.
Amplifier. That was it. Amplifier. I almost said agitator. I like that one too. Like, when it's an agitator, that's the person that actually isn't in the fight. They sit off like 2 cubicles over, and they're like, "You gonna take that? You're a bitch." And they're just like, what'd you say? Be like, I don't know, man. I think they said you was who's that? Who's the antagonizer? Is there one that's an antagonizer?
The amplifiers, because again, the amplifiers aren't afraid of the fight the same way the igniters aren't afraid of the fight. So if you get amplifiers and igniters together, like, shit's gonna go down for sure.
They're yelling. They're like, you're the punk. He started. I heard him. Bro, you ain't gonna do nothing. Like,
right? Because also both the amplifiers and igniters know if a fight happens, I'm good. I'm not worried about this at all. Bring it on. Like, you guys want to get mad? Love it. Do it.
And I also find it interesting when you said, like, we shouldn't be upset at the person who's okay with the fight. Mm-hmm. I think why do you think that's so hard for? And I mean, listen, we all understand that there is a time and a place. Like, I don't need you in the middle of my call center being like, let's get ready to rumble. Like, I don't need that person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do we harness that though? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, and not lose that passion.
So conflict at the end of the day is information. It's neutral, right? We might be really impassioned in how we're giving that information, but if we can hear the information for what it is before someone has to escalate to this really protective response, we are able to have that conflict and have somebody feel better understood. We feel more understood ourselves, and we get more information about what's important to that person, what they need in a relationship, what they're lacking just in life right now, whatever it is. We tend to escalate it to the point where we're in these protective reactions. And I mean, we can just all set it down and walk away. It's not going to be productive at that point. Right. But that conflict was happening when it was tension, right? When people were starting to let things go unsaid. Let's start there. Let's start having this conversation, and let me give you the tools to have that conversation in more productive ways so you do get the information from it rather than having that same old fight that I know that, you and your partner, me and my, but we just recycle these things because they never get resolved.
So now, again, folks, if you want to know what Leanne, God, I almost called you Leanne. Lena, what Lane,
Wouldn't be the first time.
what Lena's got. Well, my wife's name's April. She gets called Rachel all the time. What,
Mhm.
yeah, what me and my dad used to call her that. I'm like, Dad, why? So, if you want to know what Lena's got going on, you can check out Fight Languages with an S at the end of it.com. Any upcoming speaking events, places where people might be able to see you. Do they need to go into the Alaskan outback or whatever you guys call it out up there and find you? And I would
Right.
so want to ask, like, what's your side? What's your everyday carry? Because you're in Alaska and I know you got to fight bears every day. So you have to fight bears every day.
I've only seen bears a few times, and I am out in the bush a lot. I love camping and backpacking and, solo hikes for days out there. I carry bear spray and a 60-pound German Shepherd. Those are my weapons of choice.
So the German Shepherd as a snack so that you can get away makes perfect sense to me. I have a corgi now. I used to have
Oh, yeah.
I used to have big
Yeah.
dogs. Now I have a corgi. Like,
Mhm.
you know what that was?
Yeah.
That was when I realized that my fight language wasn't that I need a big dog to show, look, man, I've got a big dog. You see what I've got here? I realized if you really care that much, we can see how this all works out. That's what I realized.
Yeah.
Go get a corgi.
Look at that growth. I love it.
See, that's what it was. So anything coming
Yeah.
up where anybody can find you if they want to see what's going on, any live events, webinars,
The
anything?
website's the best place. I've got a mailing list on there, so you can sign up and get a heads up on any upcoming events. There's nothing, just some local stuff right now. But yeah, I love when someone out of state is like, "Come down to the lower 48. Let's talk about this." I'm like, "Yeah, love it. Let's
Come
do
eat.
that."
We got good food down here. Come on, come hang
Right,
out.
right.
Nobody's
We've
eating
got sun
Skittles.
and it's warm.
You
There in
know,
a heartbeat.
look, the only friend I had that ever went to Alaska, he was like, "Look, dude, they have a mosquito season and they look like swarms. Like you guys have mosquitoes at a level like I can't even understand."
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, absolutely, it's wild.
well, look,
Everything in Alaska's bigger.
that's it. It's all bigger in screw Texas.
Mhm.
It's all bigger in Alaska. So, well,
Right.
look, folks, if you've found Lena through me or me through Lena, make sure you're giving this a like, share, a follow. Oh, there's my buddy Patrick. Listen, you and Patrick would have if Patrick's still out there, you and Patrick would have a phenomenal conversation. He's very into servant leadership and those type of things, and is probably one of the best. He would be a negotiator. I think, like in a fight, he would be a negotiator. Like
Mhm.
he's a very calm, level-headed guy. You and him. I have to introduce the two of you. I think you
That's
guys.
awesome. See, we need every fight language has amazing skills that we really want to have in the fight. And the negotiators are really good at staying calm, seeing the perspective from all sides. They're really good at putting themselves in someone else's shoes, and it's so valuable to have them around.
Yeah, see, that's Patrick all day
Mhm.
long. Well, look, folks, if you're going to keep joining us next week, remember we do this every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time live. Even if you're in Alaska, you can join us because it's only midday for you there. We have with us next week Paul Graver. Paul is a technical services and quality team with Mohawk Paper here in New York area. He's currently the vice president over there. He's been with the company for over 20 years, developing enhanced and quality customer service efforts and techniques and processes. So we're going to be talking about those kind of things, what he's got going on, how he achieved these different levels with quality assurance and quality processes, and how that translates into other things, because he also, and this is really cool to me, he also owns a barbecue company. He makes his own barbecue.
Oh, that's cool.
So he has been able to take that process, quality assurance process, and moved it into that, but also using it into his everyday life and everyday processes. So we're going to be talking about those things next Wednesday, seeing how they all develop and anything. Yeah. So most recently, he's become the vice president of commercial investigations LLC in Latham, New York, overseeing day-to-day operations, implementing a new system to optimize order entry, identifying methods of data retrieval and analysis. And I know for most people, they're like, God, that sounds so boring. Look, own a business. Lena and I are like, listen, own a business. All that shit sounds absolutely fascinating. How are you doing it? And how are we making this happen so that I can sleep easier at night and not have to figure out where all this is coming from? Now, look, we talked before the show. This is episode 291. I can actually remember. So we got like 9 more to 300. I don't even know I had to look and see who 300 guest is. I have no idea. We're booked out to October. I'm clueless. So guest number, you're 291. So I know you have binged all 290 of the other episodes. You're fully immersed. We're going to see whose fight language is better here in a minute. You are fully,
love it.
We are fully immersed in everything to do with the show, and don't log off afterwards because we got to talk for a couple minutes after the show. The guest always gets the final word. So what is our final word tonight?
Our final word is the conflict holds exactly all the information you want to connect with that person. So lean into it, start translating it, and all of your relationships everywhere are going to improve.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to push your stool in. This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.